Hello, welcome to another Terrain Tuesday. In this, we're going back to the old school. Recently got hold of Warhammer 5th edition and I want to play a game, but I want no terrain. Now what's that I hear you say? You crazy person, you got loads of terrain. You've seen videos of me making it and you've watched battle reports of me using it. Well, this is true, but I don't have any terrain that sort of fits. Warhammer, especially Oldhammer sort of games before 5th edition, is very stylized. Has a very stylized look, and my terrain and modern terrain making is very realistic. So what I wanted to do is make some terrain that looked like it could come from 1994, 95, and so I thought I'd do a little series of different videos over time to doing this. And the first one I'm going to do is to make some hills. Now, Warhammer's a rank and file game, so modern hills where you have them really nicely sloped, just not going to work. So you want to have the old school stepped hills where it's flat, goes up, flat. So first thing I'm going to do is consult the old school Warhammer terrain guide that has some lovely articles in here, but very suitable for the age, being that's when it was written. I think it's mid-90s it was written. And it does have a guide on hills in here somewhere, if I can find it. But we're not going to make that exact using this exact guide. Here it is. Yeah, it has a section on hills. We're going to use this as a bit of inspiration. This is made from corrugated card. We're going to use foam for this, white foam specifically, because at the moment, and I hope you're all well and safe, it's very difficult to get out and about and get supplies. So I'm just using what I've got in house, and I've got a load of white polystyrene I used to make the Hobbit houses out of a while back, so I'm going to use that. But yeah, we're going to make some very stylized stepped hills for Oldhammer games. So let's bust out the flannel and let's get terrain making like it's 1994. Also, this would be great project to do if you're in with young kids and you're trying to get them into wargaming. This is great for them to work with. It's really easy for them to do, and as such, I'm going to go back to this old school system where giving it a project difficulty of 1. Anyone can do it, so yay. Let's get going. First up, you want to get a sheet of foam that's about 1 inch thick and draw a kidney bean around it that's 14 inches at its longest and about 9 to 10 inches at sort of its width area, like so. Next up, you are going to want to cut this out. I'm using a hot wire cutter here, tabletop hot wire cutter. If you don't have one of these, you can use a craft knife, but it's just more messy and time consuming. Once you cut this out, you want to angle the edges, not by much, just a little bit. What I've done with my hot wire cutter, I probably can't see it here, is I've just put the wire at an angle, so when I draw it through, it's actually doing the angle for me, makes it nice and easy. So I'll just carry on and do that to the entire piece. Once this is done, and this is what it will look like, you want to come in with another bit of foam you just put on top and just draw a sort of smaller shape with the same sort of shape around it, leaving about a 2-inch gap around each edge. And you're going to want to cut this out and angle the edges as you've already done. And this is what both pieces look like when they're in place, and now we're just going to glue them in place. To glue them in place, just going to get some PVA glue and just pour it all around the top surface, the underneath of the top surface, and just use a brush to spread the glue around. Once it's in place, I'm going to get some PVA in certain patches around the edges here and just apply some PVA, and then I'm just going to come in with some modelling gravel. There's a video on how I make some ultra cheap modelling gravel, you can see here, and I'm just going to sprinkle that in over the glue to add a bit like some rock fall areas, just to make a bit more interest to the hill. You can also make a 3-stepped hill like here, similar process. And what I'm going to do is, what I'm pointing at here with my sculpting tool, I'm going to come in with a craft knife and just cut out random bits, because this will be like a rocky outcrop. As this is a very stylized Oldhammer terrain piece, you don't want this to look realistic, and this goes against normally everything I do with terrain where I'm trying to make it look realistic. I want it to look stylized, like terrain you'd see in the 90s. I'm just coming out and cutting bits out, and this can get quite messy. So what you're going to want to do is have some sort of hoover in place. As you can see here, what I'm trying to do is I've got it on and I'm trying to scrape, get rid of all the bobbles and hoover them up to keep the work area tidy. Next up, coming with a mixture of Mod Podge and black paint ideally, but I'd run out of Mod Podge, and so I use PVA and black paint just to seal the gravel in place. Also, I applied some gravel on the 3-stepped hill, so I shall do that. Also use this paint mixture to seal and paint the rocky outcrop surface. This will keep any loose polystyrene bobble bits from falling out. Ideally, I'd like to cover this in Mod Rock, but I don't have any at hand, and I'm not able to get any at the present time, so this will have to do. Once the black's sort of almost dry, it doesn't take too long, coming with some green paint, green acrylic paint, I'm just going to do a squirt like this, and this should cover the entire hill. So I get my brush, put it in some water just to help the paint cover, and paint over the entire surface of both hills. Once the green has dried, it again doesn't take too long, coming with some grey paint. This is called Storm Cloud. It's a tester paint pot. Save using your miniature paints, and you're just going to give it a heavy dry brush over every black area. So that's the gravel and the rocky outcrop surface. With the rocky outcrop surface, you want to go in up and down motions ideally, but in between the difficult crevices you might have to get your brush in and wiggle it around to get some coverage. Once the grey's dry, coming with some urban grey. This is a very light grey, and what you want to do is load your brush and then get rid of most of it to do a nice light dry brush over all the grey areas just to make it pop. And you also want to do this over the rocky outcrop surface. Next up comes the actual fun part. I'm using Green Blend by Wooden Scenics Flock, and like we did with the green paint, I'm just going to cover half the hill surface in PVA, and again just sort of dribbling it around and using my brush and watering it down like we did with the green paint. I'm just going to spread this paint around. Once it's spread around, I'm going to cover it in flock. You'll notice there's something underneath so I can catch the flock, and I've also put a container to help sort of hopefully most of it will go in there. Starting with the edges, I'm going to cover those in flock, do a little bit at a time and shake it off, do a little bit more and then shake that off before moving on to the flat surfaces. What you'll notice is the PVA will start to soak through the areas you've already covered, so then just go back over and cover them with flock and shake them off, just so you get in a nice deep heavy coverage of flock over the entire piece. This process is made easier if you don't have a cat trying to get involved in your hobby projects, but not as much fun, I don't think. But now my cat's covered in flock and he's off to cover that in the entire house. This is it when it's sort of covered. That's how it should look. I'm going to leave that to dry for 24 hours and the next day coming with some hairspray once the PVA is dried, and just give it short sharp bursts all over, spinning and doing the tops here, and then I'll come around and do the edges. Not continuous blast because you don't want to blast any loose flock off, so I'm just coming in short sharp bursts, and you can leave these to dry now. These were made effectively in one day and drying overnight, and I just come in with hairspray, so you can make them the day before and be playing with them the very next day. A good project to do with someone over the weekend and then get a game in the next day. And this is what they will look like when they're all finished. Show you the more elaborate one first. Also add a bit of flock just around these bits here, just try and add a bit more detail and interest. And here's the sort of basic one. Now these are deliberately not realistic at all. These are not meant to be realistic. These are meant to be old school Oldhammer terrain pieces. Great for rank and file because you can just put them on and they're going to stay there, you know, wherever you put them. So you can set up some archers on a hill here or up here, and you don't need to worry. You can these were made yesterday, dried overnight, and I hairsprayed them in the morning, and now they're ready to play now. So if you need a project to do for you and your family while we're in lockdown, these could be an ideal thing. Get them interested in the hobby and terrain making specifically. Easy to do, fairly safe, so you don't have to worry, and then you can get a game in the next day. But that's it. I want to do a few more Oldhammer type terrain videos, but I'll probably intersperse them with some more sort of realistic terrain videos as well. But thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's almost been a walk down memory lane, this kind of terrain project. I've forgotten how much fun this sort of thing is, because whilst it doesn't look the greatest due to its stepness, it does have a certain stylized look I kind of enjoy, and they're easy to do. I forgot about that when you used to make terrain and get it on the tabletop. Sometimes I forget that when I'm doing elaborate projects that take weeks if not months. You kind of, by the time you finished with them, I'm fed up with them and want to move on to the next one, whereas these still don't hate them, and I want to use them and play on them and stuff, and maybe even make some more. But that's it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, please, especially in these times, do take care.